and Just the Way I'm Feeling on Made in Kent. It's Thursday afternoon. Matt James with you till 5 o'clock. Now very pleased to welcome to the studio Zara from Panda Anti-Racism Team, also known as PART. Good afternoon.
Hello, Matt.
Thank you for coming in. Zara, first of all, tell us, what is your organisation all about?
So, Panda Anti-Racism Team. So I set it up about 3 years ago. So we do workshops in schools. We go into primary schools and secondary schools and basically educate on anti-racism. So I set it up. I was moved to Kent in 2013. So I've been here about 9 years. I lived in South East London before. Very, very diverse area. Very, very different to where we moved to. We've moved to a lovely little village in Kent, which is really nice, but very non-diverse.
Yeah.
So before we moved, I was a bit like, we're moving from multicultural London to a village, but my brain kind of went, it's fine. The world's a different place now. It's like there's no racism. There's nothing like that happening. Within 6 months, I think my son, who was 6 at the time, was called the N-word in the playground.
No way.
Yeah, and I was a bit like, what? Really? That he didn't know what it meant. Another kid had said, they've just called you a really bad word. And he was like, what is it? And then the school called me in, had a chat, and sort of had a conversation about it. But then within, I'd say, the next 2-3 years, I'd say we had maybe 10, 15 incidences, pretty similar. N-word, other racial language. I'd worked in schools and had language aimed at me, and it was a bit like, nothing's happening here. You'd go to the schools and they'd go, we don't know what to do about this. They'd apologise, and you'd go, okay, cool. And then it'd happen again, and you'd go, right, okay, what are you going to do about this? And they're like, don't know what to do about this. And I very much am that kind of person that goes, if something's wrong, we need to fix it.
Yeah.
I can sit and I can moan and I can get upset, or I can do something about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I kind of went, right, why don't I just go in and talk to the kids? Because a lot of what I found, I also work in mental health, so I've got like a day job. PART is like my side job.
Yeah.
It's getting bigger. But when I was working in schools with mental health, I had a lot of the kids coming up to me saying, can I just ask you a question? Is this racist? And they tell me a joke and I go, yeah, it is. Don't ever say that again.
No.
And they'd be like, I didn't realise. And that seemed to end it. But what I soon realised was that wasn't happening across the board, and that they weren't saying it to teachers because teachers weren't sure how to handle it. So I was like, for me, it's quite simple. Ask me a question, let me talk to you, and then we'll see how we can fix it, and hopefully that will stop it happening so often.
So a lot of the time it's about education, you'd say.
I really think
at
it's
a
about
young age, I
education.
suppose.
At a very young age.
I think I was educating my granddad as well in the modern world. I think many of us have been, haven't we?
Yeah.
But it's about education going, actually, that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
It never really was.
I don't think they know sometimes. I think when you're in a less diverse area, they don't have those conversations. They're uncomfortable conversations for a lot of people, so they kind of steer away from it instead of just going, no, let's have a chat about that. So for me, it's that simple. Just let's have a conversation, ask me questions. So we talk about like stereotypes, we talk about biases, we look at the correct wording of things. I explain that language changes, and I think that worries people a lot because what was maybe right 5 years ago isn't right anymore.
That's it. And I think with some older generation, that's the education there, isn't it? And that's right. It doesn't make it right though, does it? And I think that's where the world is changing.
Yes.
It's taking its time.
It does feel that way sometimes.
But it's organisations like this, Zara, which is making a difference, and especially if you get into the school. So how does it work then? Do you do sort of workshops and things like that with the kids?
Yes, I do a workshop. So with the primary school, it tends to be like a 90-minute one-off workshop.
Yeah.
And then secondary, we tend to do 2 sessions. But I start as early as like reception, and we do the workshops more around like kind of skin colour and differences, as opposed to kind of going in the real hard-hitting stuff that I can do more in the older years of primary or secondary. And kids are sponges. They take, especially the primary school ones, you go in, I could say anything to them, really, and they go, oh, okay, and that's it. And you're like, cool, because it's not the amount of times that people say, oh, I don't see colour. And I'm like, you do see colour. Kids see colour, but they don't judge because of that colour. They just take people on face value. But as they get older, the world kind of hits them. That judgment comes in, those stereotypes kind of hit them, those biases start to form, and that's when then, if you haven't said, actually, no, that's wrong, and that stereotype, it might fit a couple of people, but actually you're basing a whole group on that stereotype, and then that's going to lead to mistakes happening, to ignorance, to hate, and that kind of then escalates. So if we can just get in there really early, have these conversations, it's brilliant. The workshops are great. I love working with the kids because, especially the primary, they say things and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, right, all right then. But then I just go, cool, okay, let's talk about that.
Do you find it varies from school to school based on where that school is geographically?
I predominantly worked in Kent, and I think if you look at like West Kent's a lot less diverse than say North Kent.
Yeah.
And I think they have kind of different issues. I worked in a school in North Kent that was a very diverse school, but they were having so many issues amongst races, at different races, that they kind of had more of an understanding of it, but they had those kind of ingrained views a bit more. So whereas with the less diverse areas, it's just like they're just a bit more fearful. So they say things and then they're like, I didn't know what I was saying.
Yeah.
But I've heard it from somewhere and then I'm going to repeat it. So it's a very different mix in that way.
It's incredible. And tell us about the National Diversity Awards as well. You've been nominated for these, haven't you?
Yes. So I was nominated last
Excellent.
year. Yeah, it's so cool. And I was really shocked last year because it was like, I've been doing this, like I said, I set it up in 2019, but it's gone very slowly because I have a full-time job. And then I got the email through from the National Diversity Awards and was like, really? Really? And you can see the nominations that people have put in, which is it kind of like, oh,
superb.
Really? That's so nice. So we had the awards for that in February, for last year's ones this February, which was amazing. It was in Liverpool. It was just, met Ainsley Harriott.
Right.
He's a very cool dude.
Is he?
He's just as smiley as you kind of see him on the telly.
I used to love him on Can't Cook, Won't Cook. I loved it.
It is, and that is exactly how he came across. But it was amazing to be in a room as well with people because it covers kind of race, sexuality, all of the diverse areas, and all of these people in there, they're generally social enterprises that have set up because they want to fix a problem. And it kind of makes you go, oh, do you know what? The world is in a bit of a weird place, but people are working really, really hard to fix this. And didn't win last year, which was fine. It was a really cool do. And then I've been nominated again this year. So,
congratulations! That's amazing.
Thank you. So they do the shortlisting. I think they've got until the end of May to nominate, and then they shortlist out of all the people that they get. So I think last year there was 55,000 nominations, and then that goes down to about 100 different organisations and people.
Wow.
So it's huge. Fingers crossed for this year.
Oh, we're rooting for you. No, fantastic.
Thank you.
Sounds an absolutely brilliant organisation that you're running. If somebody wants to get involved, find out about you one way or the other, what's the best way to do that?
Well, I've got the website, which hopefully I think you can put out at the end of the show. So it's pandaantiracismteam.com.
Perfect.
So you can contact me through there, or we've got Facebook groups as well. So we've got the Facebook page where I generally just post stuff coming up. And then we've also got the group, which I found is really, really good because that's obviously across the nation. And I think we've got some international people as well, which is great because obviously it's such a big topic at the moment that everyone's kind of talking about it. And what happens on the Facebook group, especially, if people put things on that they've seen that maybe they don't understand and they want a wider audience to kind of go, can you explain this to me? Or something's happening in their area and they're like, can you help with this? So it's great. I think that we've got that kind of platform now and we're growing steadily, which is really nice. So schools as well, I'm trying to build with schools. I'm looking into grant funding, trying to get into more and more across Kent, across England, because we know it's not a Kent problem, even in London where it is very diverse.
It should be in every school, Zara. It should literally, because I mean, as a parent myself, thankfully my kids, they go to school around here. They're very, very diverse schools, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And but children that don't, that education is so important for their life, because for them, they might work in London, they might work anywhere in their future, and diversity is going to be a big part of their life.
I always say that because we've got schools in West Kent. I know the secondary school that my son went to, or we had to move him to schools because it was happening so much in one school and they weren't doing anything about it, so they moved him to another school. But I think out of maybe 1,500 students, there's maybe, I'd say 100 possibly that are non-white. But I'm like, you're half an hour, 40 minutes on a train from London, where if you don't have this education now and learn, you can't say these things.
No,
you're going to go to London and it's going to be very, very different experience for you.
Absolutely.
I think it should be in schools up and down the country, and I'm willing to go up and down the country.
Well, I hope many
have these
schools are listening
conversations.
and we can help out there, Zara. Look, your website again is pandaantiracismteam.com. I think what you're doing with the schools and beyond that as well is absolutely phenomenal. Thank you. Keep in touch with us, won't you? We'll also put you on our business directory as well at madeinkent.co.uk.
Brilliant.
So people can find you that way. Zara, it's been a pleasure chatting to you today.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for having me in.